afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Trader Merlin Show. It is your Tuesday edition, Taco Tuesday, trivia night for me. Hope you all had a great day out there. Oliver says, has Elon responded to my message on X? No, I'm pretty sure he will not respond to my message on X. I'm nothing in the grand scheme of things in Elon Musk's world. Unfortunately, it'd be great if I was more of an influencer, a sway, but I just rather be the mosquito, just do my thing, make enough to make me happy, and that's it. But hey, if he does respond, I would love to talk to him about that whole Fort Knox thing. And for those who are wondering what Oliver's talking about, you might remember at the very beginning, actually going into the first of the year, President Trump and Elon Musk were both very hot and heavy on, we're going to go to Fort Knox. We're going to audit Fort Knox. Lo and behold, we did not get any audit of Fort Knox. I think what really happened there, Oliver, is they probably went to Fort Knox, or someone just said, hey, listen, don't bother because there's nothing there. It's all voodoo, smoke and mirrors. There's nothing there. And I think if the actual vault numbers were released, the American confidence, not global confidence in the U.S. economy, might actually shift significantly. So pretty sure it's just going to leave that one alone. MTB, howdy from Texas. Hope you're doing well out there. It's pretty dramatic to look at the footage of what's gone on in Texas with all that flooding. Just absolutely unbelievable what happened. And hopefully they recover some people here soon. I know there's a lot of deaths out there, so thoughts out there for everybody. Yeah, Oliver says, like the Epstein file list. Look, if what's her name, Gazelle, whatever her name is, Maxine, whatever, if she's in jail for soliciting prostitution or whatever the heck it was, and there's no client list, then why is she in prison? Clearly there's a list. Clearly there's people who are on that list. Anyway, let's move on. So what did I want to start with today? I guess I will just dive right into viewer questions and work our way down from there. So I always like to start things with, or encourage you to send in questions, comments, feedback in any way, shape, or form, honestly. Whether it's good or bad, I have fairly thick skin. This is one that was sent in from John, and there was some announcement, I think today, that there was like 500 people being laid off in Oregon from Intel. So here's the question that came through from John. John says, how do you see the recent layoffs, Intel, Microsoft, and others impacting the market? Well, surprisingly, or I guess not so surprisingly, there are a lot of layoffs going on right now. It's not like an isolated incident where there's just a few companies reporting layoffs. It's fairly significant. So I guess I should start, you look at somebody like Microsoft. Well, Microsoft, the most valuable company in the world, it might be neck and neck. I got to check and see if Microsoft or NVIDIA is the top dog today, but they seem to go neck and neck for the past few months. They started talking about doing layoffs this year as well. And they're talking about 7,000 to 9,000 employees starting this month. So Microsoft could see a more jobs shed over there. Intel talked about cutting, I think, 15% of its workforce back in last year. So let's go to Intel. Their stock really doesn't look good, right? We've talked about Intel's price chart in the past. It just looks pretty bad, kind of stuck here near the lows. However, people were asking me about Intel, and we put that 2288 mark on there that said if it got above it, that's a pretty good sign. And today, here we are. Looks like we may have turned the corner from a technical perspective on Intel, and I'll get to my comments about unemployment on this here in just a minute, but they laid off some more today. You had companies like Wayfair laid off a bunch of employees. You had Bookings.com. You had Hewlett Packard said they're going to lay off 2,500 employees. So let's go here, HQP, HPQ, dyslexia setting in. So here's Hewlett Packard, which would not be a stock I'd have in my portfolio anyway. Oliver says Meta is hiring. I'm sure that some companies are hiring and others, for some positions they're hiring, others are letting go. Let's look at Morgan Stanley. So here's Morgan Stanley. It's been doing absolutely fantastic. Smoking from early April from $94, currently trading at $141. Looks absolutely fantastic there, but they've laid off, 2 to 3% of its global workforce. BlackRock, BlackRock also, so there's certainly a lot of stuff going on with regards to layoffs. You got Macy's doing big layoffs. You've got Wells Fargo says they're cutting off, 700 employees. When you get into healthcare and education, you've got tons. Boeing also on the layoff party, right? So Boeing, which is at a phenomenal chart. I'm kicking myself for not buying at 140 when I said I was going to. Ugh. mean, we're already up to 218 on Boeing. Remember, we talked about too big to fail. Too big to fail. So, Boeing said they're laying off like 2,200 workers. Ford plans on 4,000 job cuts, but that's really mainly in Europe with some impact on the U.S. So, the list goes on and on and on and on. Now, to the initial question, which was, do we see, or, what's the impact on the markets, right? And I did have a nice graphic for today. There is your graphic to start things off, which is, are layoffs hurting the market? In my mind, I have to say I don't believe so. And there's a reason for why I feel that way. I actually think it's a good thing for the businesses. Now, your question was, is it hurting the market? So when I think market, I'm thinking just price appreciation of shares. The comment came in there that I think that was Tofi said Microsoft layoffs were totally AI related. Right. I think a lot of the tech stuff is going to be AI related, where I can replace it someone's job, which is expensive, and insurance and all the 401ks and bonus packages, whatever, and just the issues of dealing with employees. And now I can convert that to an AI platform, which can be much faster, cheaper, more efficient. From a business perspective, these early layoffs, which I think that these are the early rounds of layoffs, is culling the fat. So if you're a business owner, and I'm sure we have plenty of business owners here, you're constantly looking for ways to improve your bottom line. And most likely, for those of you who do run businesses, you have some employees which aren't cutting their weight, right? They're just not worth the money that you're paying them. Well, no, when you do these early rounds of layoffs, you can afford to just say, we're getting rid of these 50 positions here because you're underperforming or just not carrying your weight, or it might actually be detrimental to the company, meaning you're doing something that I can replace with a better system. So you're costing me money to have you as an employee. I want to get rid of you. So, John, I think that these layoffs are actually, from a market perspective, a good thing. Now, let's be clear. If I'm a business owner, I think that this is a good thing. You get rid of this people who are underperforming. You should always, like in my mind, like it should be like a football team or a professional sports team, right? You keep the good ones and you get rid of the bad ones. If you can trade up for better employees, even better. But your goal is to win the Super Bowl of whatever your business is doing. Therefore, I think layoffs are just a natural part of the business. So I think it's great, especially if these companies are in fact incorporating AI, as Microsoft has said, and I think Facebook as well. From a coding perspective, they don't need all these programmers and developers. They'll use AI and then have a smaller team vet that code that's written by AI. So that's great. Now, that might boost share price for a period of time. Right. What that should do is ultimately translate down to better profit margins. So if Microsoft is getting rid of a significant amount of very expensive code writing developers and engineers, and I can now go back and take AI, which has the code writing experience, and write this even better, then what that means is Microsoft's going to have better profits going forward. They will have a better return on investment by using AI and whittling it down to a smaller team. Okay, so in the short run, and I don't know how long that is. Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? I think you see price appreciation. And again, I don't know how long that duration goes. Your question initially was, does it hurt the market? If it goes on for an extended period of time and we continue to get these corporate efficiencies using artificial intelligence, using robotics and other systems to streamline operations and get rid of employees, we will come to a, what's the right term? We'll come to a cliffhanger moment, if you will, where they've laid off enough employees, but now the layoffs are impacting the economic factors, right? So right now, these little bit of layoffs, it's not dramatically pulling down the economy. But as soon as we start to see those unemployment numbers rise significantly, maybe we get to 5% or 6% or 7%, we know what that means. That means that there's less purchases going on in the economy. That means there's more people that are in financial despair because they're not making the money to pay their bills, their mortgages, etc. So while it's great short term, I think at the beginning of a movement, right, it's great for businesses. At what point does that tip over and become detrimental? I don't know. I'm sure some of you have some thoughts on that one with regards to when this might tip. But right now, I have to put myself in that bullish category because I think what you're getting is efficiencies. And I saw Dag said efficient. I doubt it, but it's definitely cheaper. I think that there is absolutely efficiency gains and cost-effective stuff, but we use certain elements of AI. Efficiency can be significantly higher than what it was before. I look out at any sort of news publication. I look at any copywriters. I even look at film industry and think, man, where are those jobs going to go in the near future? If I'm a writer for the New York Times, I can now go into a well-trained model in AI and I can say, oh, write me an article about the Straits of Hormuz and the economic impact if there's attack on ships over there, or what's going on in Yemen and the Houthi attacks going on. And I'll write a very nice article on that, and I can now get rid of that employee, which would take probably several hours, maybe if not a couple days to write the article. I can now have that article written in under 60 seconds, send it over to a junior analyst to read through, make sure there's no typos, mistakes, and publish. So efficiency gains will certainly be there. At some point, it's going to come to a crux and hurt our economy. I just don't know when that is, John, and it could be a long ways away. And I'm not so worried about it right now. We talked about Don Front about this one, and he thinks it's going to happen much sooner than I believe. I think he was talking about 50% of the workforce being robotic by the end of the year, and I'm like, not a chance. Then it was next year. No, still not a chance. I think if you're looking at 50% of the workforce being robotic, you're talking several years out, but it is a very, very real possibility of happening. So what did I miss here? How many times IBM has let go of tons of stock, went out, rehired them back? I don't know the inner workings of IBM, but it is par for the course, right? You get rid of all those people that are dragging you down, and if you need new people, you could certainly go cherry pick those ones that were there. Deportations is a bit different, Margaret, and most of the deportation is not impacting technology per se, right? So Intel and Microsoft is not going to be so impacted by the deportations as is agriculture and maybe service industry pieces. So, certainly it's going to have an impact down the road because those individuals who are being deported, whether they were illegal or is irrelevant, they're spending money in the U.S. economy, right? So that down the road may have an impact as well. So we're kind of faced with this really uncertain future. And this is why I think Jerome Powell is doing the prudent thing by not cutting rates, not raising rates, just keep it the same. Because we have this uncertainty of tariffs. We have uncertainty of tax code going forward. You have really bipolar division of America by party, and hope may now get a third party. But now you have job displacement and deportations, which we just don't know the impact on our markets right now. Those things will take time to come to the bottom line. I'm nervous because I'm pretty sure that a lot of the agricultural goods that I consume out here in California, could double in price just because there's stuff rotting on the vines right now that people aren't going to pick because they're scared to go, even if they are still in the U.S., they're afraid to go pick it, afraid to go harvest those crops because you're getting ice raids all the time. It's just kind of crazy. Andre says, are laid-off employees getting new employment easily? So it's a great question, and if you look at the current jobs data, right? So let's go back to, I'll go to the economic calendar here, and let's go back to last Thursday when we had our unemployment rate. This was kind of a surprise to everyone, including myself. Of course, some of you may not have been surprised, but the unemployment number was expected to go from 4.2% to 4.3%. We actually came out at 4.1, which means much better than expected, right? It was going the opposite direction. Instead of, rising unemployment, actually ticked down. Now, I think the general consensus when I look at this price chart here, or this table, is that really, since for the last year, we've gone sideways on unemployment. Yes, we've had a low point of 4%, we've had a high point of 4.3%, but those are one-off data points. Everything else is between 4.1 and 4.2. So right now, we are traversing sideways in light of all of these layoffs that have been happening, whether it's major tech, whether it's deportations from agriculture. I still think that will start to impact later on, but right now, it looks pretty good. So your question about, are these layoff employees getting jobs? I do think that they are, there's jobs available, right? Let's just say that. If we look at things like non-farm employment change, those numbers were actually getting better. Let's go look here and go to, where's the ADP? ADP was earlier the week. I think ADP was on Wednesday. Yeah, ADP non-farm employment change. This one showed weakness compared to previous data, right? Here you went from 29,000. We thought we'd see a big increase. It actually came out at negative 0.33. Now that's non-farm employment change when you take outside of agriculture. And that to me is a somewhat concerning trend, right? Somewhat concerning trend of what's going on with the ADP non-farm employment change. However, the unemployment rate, which is what the market's really focusing on, that's the main driver. And that right now is sitting at 4.1%. That looks good. So I would argue that while they may not be getting jobs just because they're there, the truth is there are jobs available. Now, this was something that John O'Donnell posed a long time ago as a question and a comment, is if I'm an engineer at Microsoft and I'm a code developer and I'm getting paid $150,000 a year and I lose my job, am I going to get a $150,000 job? Probably not, right? I may now be making 120. So while that person may be employed, they're not up to the same level of salary that they were before, and that certainly has a drawdown on the economy as well. Now, for 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe a couple thousand people, not that big a deal if they go from 150 to 120. But if this is, several 100,000 people, well, that will be an economic shortcoming, if you will, with regards to spending in the U.S. So, what'd you say there, Dave? Those articles are written based on other articles and not self-written. Correct. I didn't ever imply that they were self-written. What I'm saying is you could have AI write the article for you, and then have somebody just simply proofread it very, very quickly. You guys, give me a topic. Let's just have some fun here for this, and I will give me a topic, give me a crisis that's currently going on, and I'll have an article written for you. So go ahead, type some stuff in the chat. I'm gonna make an article here in under 60 seconds, a very well written article in my tone of voice, based off of the things that you post in the chat. So let me get myself ready here to do this one because it should be an interesting experiment, but I can write a fairly, let's go rename that one. I'll call it, all right, so let me go back to Merlin's voice. All right, let's see. So we got deportations and tariffs. Okay, whew, boy, that's the 3 very, very different topics. Let's go. All right, how about this? I'm going to use let's see if it works with my microphone. Okay, so this is my tone of voice. All right, let's see if my microphone's working. Perfect. I would like you to write me an article about tariffs and deportations and how that impacts illegal immigration and the economy. Ultimately, I'd like to tie it back to the new American party that Elon Musk is proposing. And how does this all interact and impact our economy? Okay. So here's what it's writing. I said, all right, let's see if my microphone's working. Let me take that out. It says, I would like you to write an article about tariffs and deportations and how that impacts illegal immigration and the economy. Ultimately, I'd like it to tie back to the new American party that Elon Musk is proposing, and how does this interact with and impact our economy. Okay, so if I was to go get a Pulitzer Prize winning author, and the sound on the pod. Oh, is the sound back? It probably took my microphone for that, so sorry about that. If I was to hire a nice author, this is not going to happen in an hour. This article is going to take some time, some research, some in-depth work to be done to get that done. Now, if I go over there now, the article's written, and I can go here, and it says tariffs, what they cost you. And I could go through and read this all. Maybe I could output it and oh, it's not back? Do you have audio now? Hopefully the audio should be back. Okay, cool. Sorry. I had to close. I think it was just using the microphone. So my point there is how simple it is to do that. And while that might not be a perfect article, right? It might not be perfect. It's I'll fix the audio. For some reason, when I switch microphones, it deviates. I don't get it. Yeah, there you go. And you're back to normal now. Thank you guys so much. So with that, I can have 90% of that article written. 90% of it. And I can go back through here and I can make adjustments. I could change it out. And I'm actually kind of curious to see what this one says. Maybe I will post this. I don't know. It's actually pretty interesting. I'm very curious to see what it does. It pulls a lot of date and yeah. Anyway, to me, this is where AI hurts. And this is a simple example for newspapers and publications. But also, I am not a code writer, but I could have it write a full-on code for a website I could say write in HTML or JavaScript website for Trader Merlin, and I want to have all these different things, and it will create the basic framework in under 60 seconds. And now, if I was a good programmer, that saves me 75% of my time, 80% of my time in just writing the raw code. Now I've got a starting point to work with, and AI is going to replace so many jobs. So to answer the question, long-winded from John, which was, how do you see the recent layoffs, Intel, Microsoft, and others impacting the market? I think this is a good thing. I think that it's cutting the wheat from the chaff, if you will. It's getting rid of the stuff that's not productive. And ultimately, companies like Microsoft are reaping those rewards from technological advancements. At some point, there will be an inflection point where the advancements are doing so well that you may see unemployment numbers increase significantly. Those people may not be able to find jobs because, let's face it, if you're a good coder right now, that's great. You can almost write your own ticket. But they're taking code and just building large language models on JavaScript, C++, HTML, Rust, you name it. All those different programming languages are being built in a database. So you lose your job as a programmer in, let's say, C++, and now you're trying to find it. Most of these businesses are going to go, well, I got AI here. You know, so it's going to be tough. It's going to create a lot of problems. So, John, bullish for the foreseeable future. As I always like to say, the trend is your friend until the bend at the end. And while Microsoft's trend is a bit aggressive, I can look at the S&P and say the same thing, right? We've got a pretty significant rally up in these equity markets. My expectation was we're going to see a little bit of a pullback here, and I actually thought it was going to happen tomorrow. You know, we could fast forward here a little bit and talk about what's going on with the tariff situation. So today, President Trump playing a little bit of hardball, he went out and decided to slap some tariffs on copper, which should take impact by the end of the month. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, if you have a 50% tariff on copper, that is a pretty big industrial metal. What does it mean? Domestic producers will do okay, but imports are going to be taxed at 50%. Who's the largest? You guys, give me the top 2 producers of copper. Type in the chat. Who do you think are the top 2 producers of copper? Obviously, those countries will be the most impacted by this. And we can go look at the price of copper here. Let me go down to my metal futures here. Get rid of the Forex. I'll get rid of the crypto. And we'll go to metal futures. Where is it at? There we go. Metals. Here is your copper chart today. I mean, you had a monster. 13% jump to the upside. Actually, it's China and Chile are the number 1 and number 2. Now, okay, are we really concerned about the Chilean economy? Not so much, right? They can't really play hardball with us. China, on the other hand, is, you know, the number 1 aggressor in this trade war problem. Even though we only do like 8% of our trade with them, we import so much from them. It's definitely Oliver, no cheating with ChatGPT. Technician JD brings up a good one. He says, I don't know, but if copper continues to go up, so will crime. Theft of copper, right? People stealing spools of wire or stealing wire and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's not that expensive, but if you look at what's happened in copper over the past, let's just put a weekly on here and go the past couple of years. Right? Let's go to 2020 lows. Copper was trading at under $2, and now we're at $5.68. This isn't, you know, Bitcoin. This is a metal that is used for plumbing and communications. I mean, copper is a pretty significant impact on industrial production. One of my mentors, more a colleague really, but I learned a lot from him, as I always do. I try to learn from everybody. He would always point to charts and he'd say, look, if you want to know where the U.S. economy is going, bullish or bearish, look at the price of copper. If copper's surging and going up, that means that there's demand for copper, which means there is building going on and you've got home construction and copper is being utilized. That's industrial metal, right? Well, if that's the case, take a peek at this chart. Since 2020, we've been booming. And the reality is, when you look at the S&P 500, we've been booming, right? So for now, I have to take the bullish stance on the economy. I'm bullish on the markets, and copper is reflecting that. It's reflecting demand. And of course, the big change that just happened with President Trump's announcement today is supply. The supply that's coming in from China, the supply that's coming in from Chile and Australia. Yes, they do produce, but they weren't the top 2. they're gonna have to pay more. So the cost for copper is gonna go up, and at a certain point, as John O'Donnell would like to say, and he always does say this, I love it. He says, the cure for a high price is a higher price. At some point, if copper continues to rally like this, they may be looking at alternatives. So for example, we talk about PTEX. I think that's what it's called. PTEX is plumbing that's used in homes that's plastic now instead of copper. More flexible, a little bit easier to work with, a lot cheaper. At some point, the builder's going to go, well, we're moving away from copper and going to PTEX. Now, as you guys mentioned, data centers and things like that, not using plastic tubing there. They're going to need metal for that. So it will always have some demand, but I think it's very interesting when you look at the announcement made today. I'm kind of kicking myself for not being on this one earlier, right? Earlier, I feel like I really should have PEX. There you go, not PTEX. Thanks, Jim. I always get that one mixed up. PEX. But I really feel like I should have been on this one earlier, because when President Trump was talking about putting tariffs on steel and aluminum, right? So those tariffs are already in place. Copper was on the table back then, and I probably should have seen that one coming and been on it, but there's just too much information going on in my head. Yeah, John, I think it's like 3.8 cents to make a penny. You talk about bad business. The penny should have been gone a long time ago. Long time ago. Can the U.S. mine copper in the United States? I'm sure there is some copper mining, but I don't know. I'm not versed on that. All right, what else we got in here? Still breaking. That was Sam's Demanza. Oh, Margaret, you crack me up. So yeah, that was a big piece. It was the copper. Also, President Trump playing hardball with Europe today. I mentioned that on yesterday's show. Like the major 4 trading partners that we have in the U.S. Number 1, EU. 2, Mexico. 3, Canada. 4, China. With those 4 still completely unknown with regards to resolution here, I think that's a lot of uncertainty for the remainder of the week. Now, that's what Merlin said. I have no enemies. No. I have people I dislike immensely, Rob. I have people I think don't even serve to breathe the air that we walk on, or that we consume. But, I'm sure I have haters out there, people that hate me, but it's good. Let them hate me. With Sam, strong dislike. Strong dislike. Yeah, strong dislike. I like people with a moral backbone, a sense of worth, and people who don't lie and cheat and steal. Those are people I just don't have a lot of good feelings for. If you steal from me, get out of my life. I want nothing to do with you. And I think that should go for your friends and your family. If you got someone who's stealing from you, cut them loose. Never deal with those people. And to lie about your successes, to lie about what you do, to lie about so many different things, you're just a liar. So move on. Good luck. Good riddance in whatever professions those people do. I think this is why it's so important for people to do their due diligence and look up people. In particular, that individual that you guys mentioned, your research, and you find out the truth about characters. But whatever. It is what it is. This world is full of charlatans and people who are not exactly the best out there. Just got to do what we can, right? Make my life as good as possible. Let's see. He's only what do we got? Copper mining is a significant industry in the Thank you, futures trader. Particularly in the United States like Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, Nevada. I knew Nevada. While he uses major coppers. I don't know on the grand scheme of things the production numbers of copper. I don't have a graphic for that one. I did see one a couple days ago that dealt with, but I don't remember the U.S. being like that extreme. Not extreme. All right, so this is going to be an ongoing one. The piece I was mentioning that I think is very interesting is how President Trump really kind of pushed the envelope on pharmaceuticals, especially things coming from Europe, on why we should have to pay so much more for the drugs that are really cheap over there. That will be interesting. However, if you looked at the commentary from Trump today, He's saying we give them at least a year and a half. So don't expect pharmaceuticals, prices to get tariffed dramatically right away. This is something that it sounds like it could be way, 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 way down the road. Andre says, mine, baby, mine. Yeah, maybe. And if you look at copper, and all of a sudden the price of copper is now at $5.60, I will tell you that there's probably a lot more copper excavators, copper companies that are saying, hey, let's buy some more equipment, right? Because back here in 2020, when copper was trading down at around $2, not a lot of profit margin. But now, certainly inflation on goods and services has helped, but you're up over $5. I'm sure that you're a copper producer, you're like, let's get to work. Let's hire new people. So there could be big expansion going on in those states that you mentioned. You mentioned Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, Nevada, Montana. Yeah, there's probably plenty of opportunity there. And as these things become more expensive, more will come online. Just like with Bitcoin miners. If you go back to 2017, there was really no one was a Bitcoin miner. Very few people. Heck, I wish I was. But now that Bitcoin's trading at $100,000, it's like, hey, there's good money here. Let's do it. So I think you'll see more and more production of copper, which may start to impact the price a little bit. But right now, that trend is your friend till the bend at the end. I would expect to see a pullback in copper over the next week or two. But as we get near the end of the month, that is when the tariff is supposed to be placed on those copper imports at 50%. That's a significant increase. So that's another big piece. What else did I have? I mentioned that I thought that SpaceX would be one of the most valued IPOs in the history of financial markets. I don't know if you guys caught this today, but Elon Musk just got another round of funding for SpaceX, which values SpaceX at around $400 billion. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that the largest IPO in U.S. history, I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Visa. I know I've got fact checkers out there. I have to keep talking, so I can't talk, type, and do it all at the same time. I'm sure somebody can find out. I'm pretty sure it's Visa and was like almost $18 billion valuation. So let that sink in. If that was your largest IPO was $18 billion, SpaceX is currently sitting at a valuation of right around $400 billion. Pretty crazy. I'm excited for this one when it finally does. I don't think that Facebook's was... Well, someone look it up. I remember Visa was it was major headlines at the time, but I don't know what Facebook's was. It could have been. I guess I'll look it up here. What was FB IPO valuation? Oh, I guess I was totally wrong. Way out of line, John. Yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah, so Toby says the largest IPO in U.S. history was Alibaba, which raised $21.8 billion. Yeah, but if you look, Facebook's IPO valuation was $104 billion. So who knows where the heck they're getting the numbers off. Either way, let's go. What? I'll go for the full Monty. What was the largest IPO valuation in U.S. history? Oh, yeah. So it's weird. It says $21.8 billion for Alibaba. But how did Facebook have a much bigger one? I don't know. Who knows? Here you go, John. You win the prize. Yeah, but Doggy, Aramco was not U.S. I was saying in U.S. history. So this will be, hands down, and when it does come to fruition, will be the largest IPO ever by a wide margin. The question is, does Elon Musk need to take SpaceX public? I don't think that it does. I don't think that SpaceX needs to go public. And once you establish space and you get to Mars, I don't think you need that kind of money because people will be throwing money at you to get to Mars. If you guys think about, I saw an interesting comment the other day about people like, well, why is he doing all these stupid things, right? Why is he working so much with AI? And why is he building tunnels and electric vehicles and solar? If you break it down into what happens when we get to Mars, you're not going to have millions of people to build infrastructure, right? And it's way too damn hot for you to be on the surface all the time. So you arrive on Mars and you've got multiple rockets that are bringing service pieces there. What do you bring? first thing you're going to do is send a bunch of robots. Your Optimus robot, which is now coming to fruition. So you send Optimus robots on your first mission, maybe a human or two to help monitor things. Exactly, Mick, to get to Mars. It's not just to get to Mars, Mick. It's once we're there. So think about it. Once he gets to Mars, he has to build this city, right? Start somewhere. And if it was like 20 men and 20 women or whatever, that's going to take forever to build. So what do? You get robots. You got Optimus there, which will build 24 hours a day, 365 a year. Now, to build the infrastructure for us, we need to get underground. So they assemble the boring rigs to go underground and build underground cities for people to live in during certain times of the day when they need to. And that will all be done with the boring machines. Then you need energy. There's no petroleum products that we know of on Mars, so you're going to need solar. So he's doing all the stuff with solar. So you've got the robots, the solar. You're going to need AI logic to help them build and design all this stuff. So let's gather collective intelligence, or AGI, and allow them to run. I mean, it makes sense to me. It's almost like all of these previous businesses will culminate in that trip to Mars and, build a livable planet in no time. Remember, these Optimus robots aren't going to be impacted by bad air quality. They're just robots, right? They're not going to have to worry about breathing. So, yeah, to me, it's interesting. Someone was commenting on how Elon Musk is doing all these really strange businesses. Well, they all kind of do line up with necessity that once we get to Mars, how are we going to build a sustainable habitat as quickly as possible, right? So the first mission will probably, I would imagine, a group of people who know that that's their final destination, that they're going to go to Mars and they're never coming back to America or to the world, to Earth. They will be in charge of making sure that those robots run efficiently and that the boring machines are set up properly, and the robots will be monitoring all that. But it's interesting how it all ties together, right? You got to go underground. Bring your own portable battery charger. Yeah, Mick, at some point, the robots will be making robots, right? They're going to have to multiply to get up to scale. Yeah, one-way ticket to Mars. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could do that one. Who knows? Time will tell, but pretty sure I will not be on the flight to Mars. So I thought that was another very interesting piece today, was the valuation. $400 billion is no small feat. That's a monstrous number. He is a smart guy. Is he a lunatic? Is he crazy? I think so. I think he's kind of cuckoo. There's a lot of people who say he has Asperger's because he has incredibly strong skill sets on one side, and it seems like he's totally lacking on other areas. But yeah, I'm a fan. I would absolutely not bet against Elon Musk. Now, maybe for a short-term trade, I would short it, but I am not. I'm not going against Elon Musk. I think that pretty impressive what he's done, and well, he may be a little bit of a weirdo. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. All right, let me go through our top 8 here, and then we'll go into whatever listener questions you have, or viewer questions, since we're all watching this right now. We'll start at the bottom and work our way to the top. You've had that gold chart stall. Really, it's not looking that great from the weekly basis. I've got a pretty wide range here. Let me slim this down into a daily time frame to get a little bit better perspective of it. While we did break above and was looking promising back on June 13th and 16th, we're dead smack in the middle of that range, and I just don't see anything here that would cause me to say, hey, buy gold or sell gold. If anything, maybe do some spread trades on it and capitalize on something that's just kind of going sideways. Now, to the S&P 500. I mentioned this on the TikTok stuff that we were doing in the morning, which actually had a big mistake in it. I don't know if nobody called me on my mistake, but hey, I'll be okay with that. I have these two little zones here, and I know we got people listening to the podcast. Ed up in San Jose, hope you're listening. I know you're listening, but we kind of sold off on the S&P futures down to the zone between 62.27 and 62.53. We tailed down into that today, just barely into that low zone at 6,254. So we're literally 1 point higher than that yellow box I have on your screen, the top one. I don't know how confident I am that that's going to hold. I do feel like there's a bigger pullback coming, and most likely, if it does pull back, it'll retest the all-time high here on the S&P futures, which is 61.66. Now, that's the future side of things. I should probably look at the more relevant number, which is the index itself. That would be 6,147, which is about 80 points lower from current value, and I think that's a very, very real possibility target. Okay, moving on up. That was the S&P. The dollar index had that nice little bounce. We had yesterday and today actually was looking fairly bullish, hesitating a little bit near the end, closing near the lows. I wouldn't call that a harami or a shooting star formation, but it does kind of fit the picture of you get a surge up and then it sells off aggressively. Surge up, sells off aggressively. Surge up. Well, that might be a sells off aggressively over the next few days here for that dollar index because the trend is your friend until the bend at the end, and I think that trend is pretty damn clear. Now, if this does continue down, I do expect more bullishness for the equity markets. I think all-time highs are back in order if this dollar continues to sell off. Index time. Back to the NASDAQ. Yep, Rob Dixie is absolutely weak. You know, I don't see anything. If you look at where we tailed up to today, like today's trading activity, I don't see anything in this recent sell-off from June 23rd all the way down to July 1st. I don't see any strong supply zones in there that I think would cause this thing to aggressively shoot down. But just the general pattern, when it rallies up, it hasn't really been stopping at supply zones. It's just like a surge up after a pretty predominant downtrend and then sells off again. Surge up, sells off again. So this would fit the bill for that current trend, meaning that this is probably going to continue to move to the downside even after we've had that 5-day move up in the dollar index. Harrison, I love it. He says, I have Asperger's also. Sometimes I don't get the guy. I will say, if you have not read the book on Elon Musk, and I'm listening to it on Spotify when I go to the gym, I'm almost done with it. And it certainly, I have a greater appreciation for him as a business person. I think as an employee, you're going to hate the guy. He sounds like he just doesn't want to hear excuses. Right now, I'm at the part where he took over Twitter, and that was crazy. The way he took over Twitter and just fired 80% of the workforce. And that's pretty impressive. People thought they were done. That's pretty wild stuff. But yeah, some of the things he does, especially if you listen to like Joe Rogan interviews. I think he just did an interview with Sean Ryan, which I've been wanting to check out. He's he's interesting when you get him kind of relaxed and comfortable, where he's not focused on SpaceX and all these different companies. But yeah, I certainly would like to see more interviews with him. I mean, come on. The one time where Joe Rogan hands him a joint, and I don't think Elon Musk really does any drugs or anything. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll smoke this. You can tell he's a total amateur. It's pretty funny. Anyway, let's get back to our top 8 here. So we have the NASDAQ, which, look, what have we done in the past 2 days? Nothing. We've literally just had these really tiny compressed ranges for the NASDAQ and most of the broad market indexes, which tells me we're pausing. If we don't see sell-off and new lows put in, then we're breaking all-time highs. It's just, remember, markets can only go one of 3 directions: up, down, or sideways. Marcus says, I don't get why people like Joe Rogan. I'm a fan of Joe Rogan. I think he's another person that's just DGAF, right? He doesn't care. I think he tries to dig down into the facts. Sometimes it borders on the edge of conspiracy. I like his style. I like his attitude. I'm a fan of Joe Rogan. I think he tries to do a good job of interviewing guests. He brings on both sides to get arguments, but yeah, I certainly don't dislike him. Lex Friedman, Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan are all pretty good long-form podcasters. I like them. Do I agree with everything that he says? Absolutely not. Absolutely. Hell, I don't even agree with a lot of things I say sometimes. I have to change my thought. All right, so let's go back to that 10-year. Very nice surge up in that 10-year. And I say very nice. I'm sure if you're looking for a mortgage, this was not welcome. You did not want to see this. But we've seen that 10-year yield jump about 5% in just the last 4 trading sessions. That is a pretty significant rally up. Are we done with this downtrend that started in May? We haven't made a new swing high. So for me, it's really got to get above this 4.5%. If he does the 4.5 rip up there and breaks that, then okay, now we're back up and probably going to 5%. As I've been thinking we would all year. I thought we'd be much higher than this by now, but been pushing down. I think that has to do with a lot of the presidential pressure, just saying I want cut. You saw today again another demand for the resignation of Jerome Powell. Like, come on, man! You don't have people resign that are doing their job to the best of their ability in a very difficult situation. You'll never be totally happy, but the 10-year grand scheme of things, look, we're still in this consolidation, massive consolidation pattern that goes all the way back to 2023. We're not making new highs. We're not making new lows. So it's really just pennant formation. At some point, that will break, and we will see this rip to the one way or the other. I do think it's going to go higher. Crude oil, all right, with a little bit of conflict rising. You saw the Houthi go and start, attacking boats again, and it's just, this is what I feared. I feared that it's not just the Iran, it's just that Middle East tensions over there. You got so much oil, any disruption causes spikes. That's why I was bullish on it. Bummed that I didn't add to my position yesterday, but it's okay. I still have a decent, sold some puts down there with a strike. It's 71 on USO, so that'll expire worthless on Friday. We're good with that one, so I'm fine there. But I do think you'll see this continue to creep up here. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. Second place, Bitcoin. Now, for those of you who watched Bitcoin break out above this pennant, this bull flag formation on July 2nd and 3rd, you're like, oh, here we go. I thought that by the end of this week, we'd be at all-time highs. And it is unfortunate that we're kind of drifting lower, but we're still staying right on that trend line. That's a good sign there. I am of the opinion that we'll see this continue to move higher, but of course, I'm biased because I own Bitcoin. Yep, Chris, we already talked about copper. You're late, buddy. You're late. And lastly, your lead dog today? Russell 2000. 2,245 is where the Russell finished for the day, for the futures, actually, by the way. And, while it looks great, still got a ways to go till we get to that all-time high level, so it's okay. It looks great. It was up 0.72%, and most of these broad market indexes looking decent, actually looking fantastic on the intermediate trends, especially that S&P. I mean, this chart's absolutely fantastic. For most people, you watch the beginning of the year, if you go back to, let's say, January 1st, you're freaking out because markets were down 20%. And now all of a sudden, they have rallied significantly, and I'll just go to that close rough here, 30% rally off those lows. That's pretty phenomenal. Now, for the year, I always like to do this in my portfolio, and maybe you guys do as well, is I always like to go and see, where are we for the year, because I like to calculate out my portfolio, and I always keep a running track of where I am technically. So that's from the end of the year, and let's zoom out here and go to where we are today. And I will show you the exact rate of return for the S&P. We are currently up 5.66% for the year on the S&P. 5.66, and that's, a lot of that's happened just in the past week. It's been a phenomenal 2-week rally here for the S&P 500. Now, with regards to Bitcoin, Chio, I'm still bullish, even though the pattern doesn't look that great. The good news is you've broken out of this sloping downward channel I have on the screen here. You're making higher lows, which is great. The key is where we're at right now must hold. We've got to have that hold. Those levels need to hold. We really should not dip below 105. If we do, then we're back in the channel and things will continue to drift lower here. But I was expecting more of a surge. I expected to see over the weekend that this was going to rally, liquidate some of those short positions, those leveraged short positions I showed you last week, and then all of a sudden we'd be at 112, which I still think is on point for this week. It's Tuesday. We got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I do think that we could see higher movement in Bitcoin by then. So there we go. All right. The hourglass has officially run out. What does that mean? Well, that means we have rate announcements to discuss. So, the big shock today was actually that Australia didn't lower rates. They were supposed to lower rates 25 basis points, and they did not. They kept them right at 3.8%. So that was kind of a shock. And tonight, in just a little bit here, you're going to have New Zealand come out with their rate statement. So anybody trading the Kiwi, there you go. 3.25% is what it's at right now. Now for Wednesday, you notice I don't have anything on here that's really that exciting except the FOMC meeting minutes. Why is this so important? That's going to happen at 2 p.m. tomorrow. So that's 2 hours before the markets close. Now, with the FOMC meeting minutes, remember, you have President Trump attacking Jerome Powell. Retire, you dummy, you buffoon, right? Numbskull. He called him all kinds of names. What are we in third grade calling someone a numbskull? Anyway, he's going after Jerome Powell aggressively. Now, of course, Jerome Powell's the main target, but you have a lot of voting members at the FOMC who are a part of that final decision. Jerome Powell isn't the only one who has a say here. The meeting minutes will open the curtain a little bit so you can see what the other voting members have been thinking. And we'll see if more of them are starting to think lowering or more of them keep the same or raise, where that balance of power shifts. And it would not surprise me to see other voting members start to cave to President Trump's pressure. Why? Promotion. If Jerome Powell resigns, President can nominate someone else. It might be someone who's in line already that's showing favorable to what the president wants, and that would be cutting rates. So that would be an interesting one to see tomorrow. It could give us much more insight as to what might happen at the next FOMC meeting, which of course is going to be at the end of the month. Now, with regards to what rates are going to do, yes, CPI, PPI next week, and more importantly, Oliver, earnings season. Earnings season kicking off next week. Lisa says, I don't see Powell resigning. Neither do I. I do not see Powell resigning. No. He's made it very clear. He's like, I'm going to go through all the way through my term. So right now, if you look at the end of July, 95% chance of no rate cut. Everything's staying the same. September, though, is where we saw the big shift. There's a 62% chance of a rate cut in September, and that's where my money's at, is the September rate cut. I think they're going to wait one more month because there's too many unknowns and too many variables. Earnings move the markets too, yes, especially when you got most of the major financial institutions are going to be reporting next week. Chio, as far as Bitcoin getting to 250, every time that this does not have a big move up, it hurts my probability, right? So for it to get to, I'm going to leave this there. That line actually measures the, let me put a subtle line on here. The red line that you see is the measuring object for a breakout pattern for a bullish flag. Now let me go and change the style here of this line. I will make it a little bit dashed here. I'll make it blue. And the blue line on your screen is how far I would have to move to get to 250. And that's going to be by November. Remember, November is my target. So if we go all the way out to here, bear with me as I get all this drawn on the screen here. There is the 1st of November, and 250 would be right there, roughly there, close enough. That means that Bitcoin would have to move 130% in the next 85 trading sessions. Is it doable? Absolutely. Is it highly probable? No, right? That is a pretty significant rally up there, no matter who you're asking on price trajectory. So I don't know. There would need to be a big catalyst, and I do think that the Clarity Act will help. If you look at Bitcoin's dominance, this is something that's actually very important. Bitcoin's dominance, you can find that chart out by typing in BTC.D on TradingView. And just notice over the past year or so, a couple years, this is Bitcoin's dominance in the overall total market cap of crypto. And what it tells me is people are moving out of altcoins. People are moving away from, Dogecoin and Polkadot, Engine, EOS, Ethereum, and putting their money in Bitcoin. Why? Because it has legal clarity. I don't see that changing anytime soon. If the Clarity Act gets pushed through, well, we may actually see Bitcoin's dominance drop, and that money moves back into altcoins. But right now, everyone's talking about alt season, blah, 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 blah. I just don't see it happen. Not working as we speak. Now, the last part here, let me go back to, I don't even have it up here. Let me go to X and bring it up for you. I posted this today because, as you guys know, I get so annoyed at Gary Gensler, the SEC, and the ineptitude. I can't believe that they were not fired years ago for incompetence. Most of it boils around the fact that the SEC was not giving clear guidelines to companies trying to operate legally in the United States. They were always stonewalled, and if not, they were sued for doing things incorrectly. So Hester Pierce, who is a big cryptocurrency advocate, and her team released this document July 1st. And I posted it right here. I said, in nearly 4 years as SEC Gov Chairman, Gary Gensler, along with 4,200 employees, could not establish clear rules for crypto products. Now that he's gone, we quickly get clarity and structure. Bravo, Hester Pierce and the team. This is the article here if you want to read it. I think Oliver, you were asking me about this one today. So with this, it's very clear. It says, here's all the things that we need from you when you are filling out an application to be an exchange-traded product. So like an ETF, one of those exchange-traded products. And it goes through, and it's not precise, but it's clarity. It's not like it says, I read this and go, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to give you, right? A description of the underlying crypto assets and the associated networks. Okay, so let's say there's an idea that should have been done a long time ago. And that idea is a diversified ETF that reflects the top 10 holdings. So call it the crypto top 10. And it's super simple, right? I go out here to CoinMarketCap or whatever website I want to look at, and I just take out stable coins. So the top 10 list would be evenly distributed. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, BNB, Solana, Tron, oh God, I hate to say it, Dogecoin, Cardano, Hyperliquid, SUI, and Bitcoin Cash. Those would be your top 10 once you strip out the stable coins. Okay, so now I know that a description of the underlying crypto, I have it right there. I can make a list and tell you all about them. It's just really simple stuff here. And I have to explain the risks to customers. This is easy. I mean, I could create this document that the SEC is requiring of me in under an hour with a little bit of research, under an hour, and hit every one of these bullet points. And just for those that can't see the screen here, it's asking for risk disclosures. And it says risk of fraud, manipulation, front running, wash trading, security failure, or operational problems on crypto asset trading platforms. Risks of attacks on associated networks by malicious actors. Risks of concentration of ownership in the underlying crypto assets. This is all stuff that we do in the focus class. Like the focus class, we have a whole program. Actually, next Thursday is the one there where it's all about how do I reduce my risk exposure by knowing all of these things. And there's so much more to it. But I really commend the SEC because not only did they release this document, but they made it very public. They posted out on social media, like, here's what you need to have to, get your process rolling on approval. Now, I'm sure that there's a lot more to this. It's a several-page document, but I certainly think you should, if you're interested, just take a quick look at it because it's pretty simple, right? They're not asking for the moon. They're asking for just what is it? What are the risks to consumers? How are you involved with it? Who else is involved with it? Do you have a controlling interest? And that type of thing. Great, right? This is what it took Gary Gensler 4 years to do with 4,200 employees, and they still couldn't get it done. Remarkable. I almost feel like I could ask ChatGPT today about establish rules and parameters to safeguard investors with exchange-traded products. Create a list of all of the different numbers and variables that I need to protect consumers. Quarterly financial statements. Now, so when you look here, separate financial statements and audit reports. This is not for the crypto project. This is for the company running the project, Margaret. Because remember, some of these crypto projects like Bitcoin, Ethereum don't have financials. There is no one running it, right? Ripple does because Ripple's a business. Ripple is not a cryptocurrency project. You said you could create guidance in an hour. Yep, that's right, big Bri. Yeah, absolutely. I could do it. But these numbers here are about the financial statement of the company issuing the exchange-traded product, right? So they need to prove that they are financially viable, that they meet all the SEC fees, and they're safe with the SEC. All right. Okay, hourglass is long done. We're at 59 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up. If you have things you want me to discuss on tomorrow's show, email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com. Again, John, thanks for the question on the layoff thing. I think it is very important, but I don't think it's hurting. I think it's benefiting equity prices right now. The question is, when will that stop? And I just don't know. So I'm bull while we got it. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. If you have questions, something you want me to discuss on tomorrow's show, email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com or down below any YouTube video. I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care, everyone.